master the business of speaking with your hosts, Taylor and Austin. You're listening to Technically Speaking.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking. We're your hosts, Taylor and Austin, and today we're talking about books. More specifically, how your book needs to strategically fit into the rest of the business. And to help us on this subject, we've brought in Jamie Klaus-Wolf, founder of Million Dollar Story Agency and the host of the Million Dollar Pivot podcast. Now, she's chased lots of shiny objects before, creating a $1 million book publishing agency. And when her first book didn't generate any income, she realized that being a great writer simply wasn't enough. Now, to date, she has created 50 best-selling authors whose books remained in the top 25 to 100 for over 12 months and include clients who have generated $25 million a year selling mobile homes, someone who co-authored a book with Bill Gates, somebody who created 4 separate 7-figure businesses, and another person who has even amassed over 2.4 million views and generates 80 grand a month. Her $1 million method is a proven guide to write, publish, market, and monetize any book. And again, she's also the host of the $1 Million Pivot podcast, and she's been featured alongside Simon Sinek, Elon Musk, Gary Vee, and Mel Robbins. So, least to say, you guys, we've got our bases covered on this topic today. As always, stick around until the end for today's awesome resources, and we hope you like this one. And we are live. Austin, you're looking kind of funny over there.
I'm trying to read what's in the background behind you, Jamie. What?
It is. It was
is that like a scroll?
It was a Christmas gift from my daughter, and it's from an excerpt from the Velveteen Rabbit about how, you know, the older and raggedier you look, like the more life you've lived and the better off you are. So it's kind of a motto for me these days.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm looking a little worn, but this is good. Yes.
Nice.
With time comes wisdom. So
that's right. Yeah. It reminds me of that phrase, like I've seen it on the back of headstones where it's like, you know, the goal of life isn't to come to an end in a perfectly like taken care of body. It's to skirt in sideways, like with a, you know, margarita in your hand or whatever it is. So that's probably a far less eloquent way to say whatever is being said behind you.
It's all good. I'm supposed to have like all sorts of wonderful marketing and branding behind me. And I was like, no, I have a thing about getting old and raggedy because it fits.
Hey, authenticity
it's personable. Everyone can relate to that, you know? That's what we're all about here. So that's awesome. So we're really excited to have you on the show, Jamie. Your backstory is quite incredible, and you've built something really cool with the $1 Million Story Agency. And so really, just because you're new to Technically Speaking, we'd love to have you unpack your origin story. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Answer to this of, okay, guys, I'm a writer. Being short, brief, bullet points, not my forte. So I will try to be as brief as possible. And I've lived a while. So, you know, the story's
it's okay. We work with
long.
speakers.
I've been around the block a handful of times, but it boils down to, I was boring. I, you know, went to school. I did the thing, you know, got the graduate degree, climbed the corporate ladder, thought that that's where I was going to stay. I have a total of 3 children, but my middle child, when she was 10, was diagnosed with an incurable disease. Didn't see it coming, wasn't in the family. She's fine. She's 35. She's doing great. But it changed everything, of course. And so we were living in one state, got fantastic care, moved to another state, not such great care. It's like, what can I do for my kid? And I was like the Lorenzo's Oil movie, you know, just researching everything, trying to figure it out. So I accidentally became an entrepreneur, and just lots of serendipitous stuff happened. So created a medical device and disease management company, got something approved by the FDA, got all the funding, just really like fell step by step by step. I was just trying to help my kid. Turns out there's a lot of other people like her that could use some of this stuff. So that was how I became an entrepreneur with an actual technical company that was getting outside funding. And then I tell people, and then I had a Steve Jobs moment where I got fired from my own company because the person that I was married to was the CEO, the only person able to fire me. So lessons learned there, but I was bit by the entrepreneurial bug. So I ended up wanting to stay in the entrepreneurial space. I got hired by an economic development group. Didn't know about those at all. Turns out everybody, like every city, every state, every region, every country has one, and they're just designed to help create jobs in the area. So the one I went to work for was all about warehouse distribution, manufacturing, but we lived in an area where there was a unique combination of a lot of universities teaching pretty technical stuff and a lot of retired people who had come to the area for quality of life, but they got bored playing golf and they had a lot of money and they were looking to use their brain and their resources to create new things. So I went to work with angel investors, teaching them about how to invest, went to work helping syndicate different angel investing groups. There's a huge gap between what angel investors can invest and where venture capital people pick up, sort of like there's a space between about $1.5 million and $10 million. And so how do you put groups together to fill that void? And then how do you teach startups that, yes, they have a fantastic idea. That's not really what the money people care about. There's this huge tension, sort of like between marketing and sales. There's a huge tension between people who want the money and people who have the money to give and trying to bridge that gap. But I found myself saying the same darn thing over and over. Let me explain this to you. No, let me explain this to you. No, can I tell you about this again? And so I wrote it down in a book and, published a book. How hard can that be? Oh, but that is when I learned writing and publishing is entirely different from selling, like marketing and selling a book. And that was nothing I'd ever done in corporate, nothing I have ever had to do in the tech startup world. Like the marketing selling just wasn't something that was part of all of that because we were selling business to business. And so that was a whole different ballgame. So shiny object syndrome, I kind of went off in different directions, consulting this and that and the other thing. Then I moved to this little itty bitty town in the middle of nowhere because it's a really pretty place. And I was like, what can I do to stay relevant and get paid at the level I'm used to getting paid? There's just nothing here. And I don't ever want to go back to, you get 5 days of vacation for the next 3 years and that's all you've got. And I was like, really? No, I don't think so.
Amen.
So this is a short story. This is the short version. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it is.
It's a good story.
No, I love the story. I'm hooked. Yeah, keep it going.
I stumbled yet again, marketing and Facebook are really good. And they're like, oh, Jamie's a sucker. She needs to see this little thing. So I stumbled into the world of ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson and went to a funnel hacking live convention, not knowing what that was. Signed up, loved the people, loved the energy, loved the idea of creating things. And I thought, which kind of hooks into what you guys actually do. My business background is business. It's what I've done for a very long time. And what I discovered was a lot of people who were writing books, say they had a degree from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York, or they had some coaching thing or some passion, or they've been through some life event. And they thought, if I write a book about this, I'm going to sell so many copies that I'm going to quit my day job and I'm going to make a living off of this, having no clue what business is or how to make revenue or sales or anything like that. And I thought, I'm going to work with the people who already paid a chunk of change to write, publish, hit bestseller, but they don't know how to craft a business. I'll work with those folks because that's the side I like and I'm comfortable with. And people came to me and said, oh, you know how to write? Can you help me write? And I was like, no, I'm not a writing coach. I have zero patience and writing is easy. Writing is not easy for a lot of people. Can you help me publish? And I was like, right. Go to KDP and follow the directions. It's right there. You don't need help publishing. But they did because they had their thing. And to stop being in their lane and come learn something else, especially if it wasn't intuitive, wasn't something that they were interested in. And then they said, could you help me become bestseller? And I was like, oh, for God's sakes, no, it's an algorithm game. It's useless. It's a waste of time. You don't want that. And someone pointed out to me, it's like, business person, you are always telling other people to listen to what the market is asking for. Are you listening, Jamie? And I was like, no. Okay. So
it's a good lesson.
What I learned is that most entrepreneurs are really smart and they're very passionate about what they do. They have great ideas. Perhaps they're comfortable medium is Instagram. They'll talk all day long, but they don't want to write a sentence, or English isn't their first language. It should not be a barrier to communicating in the written form. I feel like, mom of three, people learn in different ways. So we need to give it to them in whichever way they might learn it, whether it's audio or it's in the printed form or it's in video format or something like that. Give it to them where they want that. So we can take your brilliant information and put it into book form for you without you worrying about how to do that. And then, a fitness instructor is the easiest example to understand. If you've got 5 fitness people and they're all, super buff and lean and look fantastic, they have a really loyal following. But if one of them can say, hey, I am a published best-selling author, now that one person, I don't know why, but they stand out in the crowd. There's just a little bit extra authority, credibility, trust factor built in. Oh, you finished something that you chose to do. You set a goal. Like, somehow you know more than those other 4 people who look exactly like you. If I don't know any of you, I'm going to pick the one that's a published best-selling author. So people convinced me there was some merit in that. And I started with the Amazon bestseller. We just did a huge launch, actually just 2 weekends ago in New York City, where we took a book to number 2 on the Wall Street Journal bestselling list, USA Today bestseller, ranked really well on Barnes and Noble. They even sent me an email saying, nonfiction doesn't usually do so well. That was kind of noteworthy that you did so well on Barnes and Noble. And then we put people up on the NASDAQ billboard for the day. And it was just really fun to see all those people who are in the spotlight and very comfortable with it come in and be so happy at the recognition and celebration. And they got like 6 months worth of marketing material out of it that they can go back and then use. And what I found my sweet spot is being the conduit for people's stories. I've got a podcast called $1 Million Pivot because my life has pivoted a bunch of times, didn't see it coming, bam, got rolled over by life. And, you have to figure out how to get back up again. And you learn something in the process. Being the conduit for other entrepreneurs' stories like that is just humbling. It makes me laugh. It makes me cry. And it's just really fun to get it out there. But everybody I work with has something to sell. So that is the nexus of where I work, is I want to make sure somebody has something for sale, so that a book is just a distribution system. It's like getting electricity to your house. It doesn't matter whether it's solar or wind power or what it is, it's still got to get somewhere. And so the book is simply one more avenue, one more distribution tool for the thing that you're selling.
Whew. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I actually want to laser in on that last part for a second, because this is one of the questions Taylor and I had when we were discussing about this show before the podcast. Is this $1 million method that you talk about, is it to generate $1 million by book sales, or is it to use the book as a vehicle to help you make $1 million? So maybe you can speak to that,
Sure.
having just sort of touched on it high level.
There's 3 parts to that answer. One is
very exciting.
Being female and working with other female entrepreneurs. It is a pet peeve of mine that not enough women are comfortable talking about $1 million run rate. There is no reason you can't have $1 million annual revenue in your business. And it doesn't mean you're an icky person or a greedy person, or you shouldn't be ashamed of very loudly proclaiming, yeah, I'm going for $1 million business. So I wanted to normalize the conversation for many women, men too, but women are just usually a little bit more hesitant. And since I worked always in sort of male dominated technical fields, I'm very comfortable with men just owning revenue numbers, not a thing. So I wanted to talk about that more, of saying, we're just going to go for $1 million run rate. If you're not there yet, let's talk about how you get there. Secondly, the idea of, once you start getting very comfortable talking sales and higher dollar numbers, the person that you become, not this, oh, it's priceless, but really you become a different person as you get more comfortable talking about having a business that's 7 figures and beyond, or several different smaller individual businesses that are each making $1 million. So that's a couple of things. I tell people, I always ask people, why do you want to write a book? what outcome do you see that would make it a success for you? And often their answer isn't the answer that I'm looking for. So then I tease and I say, are you writing about zombies? Well, no. Vampires, maybe. No, darn. Because if you were writing about those two, maybe we could hit $1 million in revenue in book sales. But, short of that, book sales themselves is not where the money comes from. If we use it as shortening the conversion time, reducing the conversion costs, if you tell a compelling enough story so that people relate to you, they can see themselves succeeding with your process, they start to trust you a little bit more. You've done some education, you've addressed some objections in your chapter or in your story, and then they're much more likely to buy from you. If you have a higher ticket offer, $5,000 to $50,000, you don't need to make a lot of sales to have the return on the investment for the book. In the books that I work with, many of them are anthologies. So you're being edified by your co-authors, instantly introduced to their million plus followers on Instagram, something else. So a lot of the authors that I work with are running multi-million-dollar businesses already, not all of them. And then the $1 million method, the last part is that I would talk to someone about whether they wanted to write a book. There's something about human nature. We want to share our story. We've always wanted to write a book for whatever reason. That's a phrase I hear often. But you know what? I need to monetize this other thing first. Let me just finish this and get back to you. If we can figure out sequentially and strategically, if you want to take a person from point A to the end result, that's your overarching theme. What are the steps or milestones or tranches you have to hit to get there? Okay, we break that down both in the material that you're presenting and teaching and the material that you're turning into content in a book form. We can do both at the same time. And when you're all done, you have all of the assets that you need: an ebook, a print book, an audio book, the funnel that it's going into, a way to make an appointment for someone to have a strategy call with them, or you've put the whole thing into a course and you can sell that. And so we just, I like efficiencies. I like systems. I am a very analytical thinker, which is why I put people to sleep usually when I'm talking. And so...
We know the feeling, Jamie. Don't worry.
Right? Oh, man.
that hit home. Don't worry.
On stage, I have no problem with that, but really it needs to be before lunch.
Yeah. Hey, know where you fit, like that's part of it too. So
there's strength in that.
That's right. Well, I'm so glad you broke all this down, because I feel, Austin, how many times have we come across people who are just writing books for the sake of writing books, because they feel like they need to just reinvent themselves, but yet it doesn't really tie into anything. And I think a few of our listeners here might even resonate with that, right? Like before you know it, you end up with a platter, so to speak, of all of these different books that don't really feed into any one thing. And so you end up kind of confusing the marketplace, it seems, and not really finding where your spot is. And so the book just sometimes doesn't inherently fit into the grander picture of what you want to do. And so I think like out of everything you just said, that strategic kind of making the book a strategic component of the business, and rather than, hey, let's do this one thing and then come back to it. I mean, who's to know the one thing you're working on right now isn't just another shiny object? Like, how does it really play into the bigger picture? A couple of things
that I have heard, because I'm really good at being a parrot. One is Jack Canfield, has sold 500 million books. He didn't stop with just one book. And a thing that makes me sad is someone says, oh, I wrote a book, it didn't work. Okay, well, let's back up. The process, the thought process that you had going into it maybe wasn't exactly on point. So let's do it again. Let's co-author. I mean, Jack Canfield has written solo authored books, and he's strategically partnered with lots of other people in order to sell so many books. And you don't stop learning, you don't stop producing. So don't just stop with one book. Just do it over and over and over again. Iterate, get it out there. You'll reach different people at different time points. The second great thing that I heard was from someone who said, look, if you're a speaker and you're standing on stage to deliver hot air, got no interest in you. If you're a speaker who is speaking specifically to sell from the back of the room, that's not a bad thing. that is making sure you are being of service. Someone needs what you've got, and you have figured out a way to move them to action emotionally or whatever prod they need at the moment. That's going to affect their life positively. So when you get up on that stage, make sure you're selling. I want to approach book writing the same way. I haven't quite figured out how to say it, but it's like, I am not helping you become an author. That has nothing. Yes, I am a book publisher. Yes, I will help you market your book, but I couldn't care less about turning people into authors. I want to work with entrepreneurs who want to serve someone. And this is how we're going to do it this time. And you can still go have your Instagram or your TikTok or, your mastermind or all of the other things you do too. This is just one portion of it.
Oh man, I love that you said that. Like one of the things that we talk about all the time is how amazing it is to be an expert business, somebody that has some sort of skill set or knowledge to share, some specialty that improves people's lives in some way or another. I think that's kind of the basis of being an expert business. But in 2022, you have countless probably different mediums in which that expertise can be delivered, and to your point from earlier, that's necessary to be able to serve people the way that they need to be served, to get the message to them the way that they're going to be able to receive it. But like the book being one of those vehicles, 100% have the book, have podcast stuff, or podcasts, or social media, speak professionally, consult, coach. I mean, there's a million different ways that you can distribute this expertise. And I think that some people miss that because they get so fixated on one specific revenue stream, so to speak. I'm just the author, I'm just the coach, I'm just the speaker. But if you're out there solving a problem and delivering value, then all of these different mediums open up to you. And I mean, if you want to run a successful business and make that $1 million or whatever, I mean, these different mechanisms increase the probability of doing so and feed into one another. It's a really cool business model, really, if you look at it from that perspective, I think.
Again, maybe with my math or science or technical background, I am always looking at systems and processes. I like efficiencies because I like to say, like, I am the laziest hardworking person that is like, if I don't have to, I don't want to. Like, if I can find a system or process to take it away.
That's a good phrase.
One of the other issues I have with the thought of traditional publishing is it's often a 12 to 24 month process. I'm sorry, 24 months from now, who knows what I'm going to be doing? Like, I'm going to be bored and have moved on to the next thing. Yes, overall, the theme is the same, but there's different modalities or different partnerships that I might be invested in. Who knows what the economy globally is going to be doing 24 months from now or what's relevant. So it's really crucial and important to me to go fast when I work with an entrepreneur to make sure, 60, 90, 100 days out, we have a delivered product so that they can then go move on. What I don't care for is this, maybe because I'm older, is like multitasking. Yeah, this brain doesn't function with multitasking. I can't do 25 things well. So something like, yes, can you distribute your information different ways? Does that mean I want you sitting there 20 hours a day trying to figure out how to create content and post it and learn all that? No. So that is why you outsource or you partner with someone who's efficient at that thing. When someone comes to work with us, we can work only with your assistant. We might work with you, but again, give you a framework and a platform to do it. So it's only like 5 to 10 hours of your time. So you go do the thing that you're really good at. Let us do the thing that we're good at. And then when we come together at the end and just get to celebrate that we're a done deal and move on with it. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm asking them to stop, move up to a cabin in the mountains, sit there and write, 60, 70 hours a week for 6 months. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Although more power to you if that's your
Right.
style.
I mean, it kind of sounds nice,
Right.
honestly. I feel like that'd be my
Henry
mode,
David
right?
Thoreau it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, one thing that's been I've been itching to ask you since I've been reading your bio, going through your website, and so on, is you had a line in there that mentioned that your first book, didn't make as much as you may have hoped for, and so that led me to
Mhm.
believe that there was some gap there, and you figured out what that gap was. So, and I feel like many people can relate to this. So, would
I
you mind
don't mind
unpacking
at
that a
all,
bit
and
for us?
I'm snickering while you're saying that because yeah, like the first book didn't didn't make anything. There was definitely a negative margin happening with that one. Um, Again, I walked into it thinking if I just write this, and to be fair, the first one I wrote, I literally was just printing and handing out to a lot of people who were asking me the same question. So I was like, here, just read this and figure this out so I don't have to keep repeating myself. So it did serve that purpose. And I've heard realtors say the same thing, that
Save
they
some
might
time.
write books about, how to go get a mortgage or how to look for property. And it's like a bigger business card. So it's a booklet. I mean, that's the other thing that I address sometimes is what is your definition of book? Because it can be all over the place. When I say book, I'm thinking of it as a strategic tool to educate your prospect. When other people say book, it could be a booklet, it could be a cookbook, it could be, just something with blank pages that you're journaling in. So I do want to separate out again what is the end result and the purpose behind writing this thing. I feel like people come at writing books from a really heart-centered place and a good place. I went through a horrible divorce. I went through a health scare. My child went through a health scare. I lost my job, didn't know how to recover. Some life event. I've come through the other side. Let me tell my cathartic story. It might save you from going through the same thing. Well, if you've ever raised a teenager, nobody listens to you. No one's going to learn from your mistakes. The world history doesn't learn from mistakes. So while it's a noble cause to want to share a cathartic story, it doesn't work. My first book borderlined on that. It was, here's some business lessons, here's some personal screw ups that I made, to make me a little bit more human and a little bit more relatable. It it didn't have an end result for people to achieve. Yes, it had some how to answers, but it didn't have one overarching purpose. I think that where I have transformed to and why the book makes money now is, again, it's not number of sales of books, although when you are making a run to hit USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller, you do have metrics of somewhere between 6 and 10,000 sales of books within a 6-day finite period. So if that's what happens just in the first week, it's going to progress so that you actually are moving a number of books. But again, the sale is, or the revenue is really coming from what is the powerful end result offer that you've got going in your chapter that now people are coming to you. Because if you back up and look at any business, if you don't have a hobby, if you're intentionally having a business that is profitable, that your margins are decent, you are spending money, whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads or YouTube ads or print ads or radio ads, you are marketing somehow. You've got a budget. So if part of your budget is now going to producing a book, but that's bringing you consistent leads on a recurring basis, maybe it's converting better than a webinar. Maybe it's converting better than a video sales letter. So those are the numbers that we're looking at. It moves it beyond a book into business. And I hope that wasn't like way too much jingoistic speak for anyone.
No, I like that
No.
line, especially at the end there.
Mhm.
Move,
Mhm.
what did you say? Beyond a book to a business or something? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great line. I like that. This actually might tie in a little bit into this, but
Mhm.
you mentioned like 5 factors on your website about what makes
Sure.
this. Is
So
this kind of what you're referencing here?
again, tired brain, overworked brain, older brain. I have a friend that says, for God's sake, stop saying you're old. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry. But it just, anyway. Um, So for me to remember, it's like it's 5 things. I need the picture in my head. It's a pentagon. This is not original. A lot of other people have said it. You know, Ryan Dice has talked about it. Alex Charfen has talked about it. Other people have mentioned it. It's kind of like the Tony Robbins be do have that you hear absolutely everybody. It's like, wait, who said that first? Every single business, whether you are a restaurant, a dry cleaner, a small newspaper circulation, any kind of business has the same requirements. And we probably can't focus on all 5 at one time, but you sort of can look at the metrics going, oh, that one's not firing so well. We need to put a little emphasis on that to get that going. And it's every single business needs lead generation and prospecting. If you are a consultant and you've got one massive client and they paid you enough that you can live for a year, at the end of the year, if you have spent no time finding the next client, you're going to have a famine period of time. So no matter who you are or what kind of business you're doing, you need some sort of system that is bringing you new leads and prospects on a pretty consistent basis that aren't costing too much money. Then once you have those prospects and leads coming to you, every single business needs some way to nurture those leads and create a relationship. So lead gen and prospecting, lead nurture and relationship building, then you've got to convert those leads into sales. So that's the third thing. Once you've converted them and you've sold them the thing, now you better make them happy and give it to them and deliver it to them and make sure that they're satisfied and they're getting results from it. So sales and conversion. And then you want to retain them and ascend them up the food chain. So deliver and fulfillment, and then ascension and retention. Slow down. Okay, so those are the 5 things, and every single business needs them. What I think is brilliant about a book is it goes back to that efficiency thing. If you have an ebook version, you can give it away or sell it for some nominal fee. That can be your lead gen and your prospecting. Within the book, you're telling stories, you're becoming a relatable human, or you're totally pissing people off and sending them away and they are not aligned with you at all. That's good. You just got rid of that whole group of people who will never buy from you. And so you got that out of the way. But you have a way of telling stories and nurturing those relationships. And then they can see themselves. If you've got some case studies or success stories, they're like, oh man, that person succeeded that way. I think I could do that. Like I can see myself going there. And so you have a way of converting sales. Also, if you're putting the book into a funnel, it's just an easy way to make sales. If you've got within your book links constantly so that you're collecting email addresses and nurturing them through email and selling that way, you've got a hold of them. You have created a system to fulfill the thing you said you were going to give them and deliver that. And then hopefully between the stories and the email addresses and keeping them in your world, now you have that way of keeping that client and selling them something else. Once you've paid to acquire the customer, keeping them should be the less expensive thing that happens in your business. And also they become a raving fan, hopefully, and you can sell them something that costs more and more and more because they're getting increasing value. None of anything I say is about ripping people off. It is about delivering value, and they won't stay if they're not getting value.
Yeah. Oh man, Taylor.
Okay.
Can you believe what just happened right there? Like that was so good, Jamie.
It was amazing. Yeah, everything we talked about, literally everything we talked about, front to back. Like everybody listening, just rewind like 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes. Take out your notebooks and write it down, and look at it every day, and polish your systems around those things. That's why we exist. That's why Jamie exists. Thank you so much for breaking that down for everyone here. And honestly, you are, Jamie, a wealth of information. Your story is so awesome, and we appreciate you coming on today. So, of course, we've got to ask if people want to learn more about you or what you're working on.
Thank you for
what's the
asking.
best way
Thank
for
you
them
for
to do
all
that?
the different things that you just said. I really do love business, so I appreciate and love that you have your audience, that you are teaching people these things, because business, we are a transactional society, whether we're in this country or other countries, it is how we come up with solutions. I love solutions. Whatever horrible big problems the world has, we can figure out solutions, but we can do it smarter. And so I appreciate that you're helping people figure that part out, as well as me, and having me on. To find me is milliondollarstory.co. So not com, but milliondollarstory.co.
Wonderful.
And that will lead to, booking a call with me, chatting with me, anything like that.
Oh, wonderful. Systems, you guys. So visit the link. You'll probably learn something or two just by visiting. So we'll put that in the show notes. Jamie, thank you again for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. And everybody listening, if you like this show, don't forget to rate it, like it, subscribe to it. And if you want more awesome resources like this, go to speakerflow.com/resources. Thank you so much for chiming in. I just wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Auxbus. Auxbus is the all-in-one suite of tools you need to run your podcast. And it's actually what we run here at SpeakerFlow for Technically Speaking. It makes planning podcasts simple. It makes recording podcasts simple. It even makes publishing podcasts to the masses simple. And quite honestly, Technically Speaking wouldn't be up as soon as it is without Auxbus. Thank you so much, Auxbus. And if you are interested in checking Auxbus out, whether you're starting a podcast or you have one currently, get our special offer, auxbus.com/speakerflow, or click the link below in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in today. Check the show notes for more info and see you next time. Later.